Just like clockwork.
Just like clockwork. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Podcast. Episode 242.
Happy Valentines Day, my podcast partner.
This is easily my favorite holiday of the year.
Oh.
Easily. I mean, it trumps Christmas and Thanksgiving. It's what a worthless holiday. I mean, seriously. And listen, I want to burst all of you lovebirds who were stuck in like a premarital dating relationship where you're still in that like infatuation stage. But this holiday is totally garbage.
Oh, man.
But, hey, we hope you enjoy it as much as you enjoy podcast 242. Go out, get your roses, get your chocolate, spend a lot of money on an overpriced meal, and invest in a piece of tacky jewelry for someone you're never going to marry. So enjoy yourself. Have a happy Valentine's Day from us to you.
Oh, I couldn't have said it better myself, man.
Seriously, like true love, when you're married, true love is when you look at your wife and you're like, you know what, babe, I'll go get this diaper change. That's how you show love as you get married and you have kids and life is just kind of the way it is. It's nothing.
I know, but some of these people are really in the throes of passion in the beginnings.
Oh, God, I know it is. It's like, give me a break.
Let's let them do it.
You know what? Have your way today.
You do you.
Yeah, you do. You know what? Don't let us be I can't wait. I'm going to be terrified to check our iTunes reviews after this. We're going to get humbug haterade iTunes reviews that we cause relationship breakups and divorces. So, but hey, whatever. We're here for your hopefully to provide some enjoyment, give you some company, and provide you with as much insightful dialogue and advice on and off the training and racing course as we can, and have so hopefully for the past 2.5 years. So thank you, and we hope to do that again today.
Just give me an idea for the podcast. Fall in love with training. Anyway, before we get into that,
I can hear you typing that down for possible grabbers. That's a definite headline grabber.
That's like a clever way. Like when I was in the news business, they would always try to do stuff like that. Spin the day into a catchy alliteration headline or something like that. Anyway, last night I went to see a guy speaking about how to do podcasts at my podcast group.
I know. I love it that you go to a podcast group. At least one of us is investing some additional time in trying to make this anything but a mediocre small niche podcast.
Yeah. And,
what did they say? It said podcast group. When you stand up, do you say, "Hey, Mike, Crushing Iron podcast"?
No, I didn't say anything like that. I just listened. I walked in a little late, and I listened to the guy. And listen, partner, I got some good news, and I got some bad news.
Uh-oh.
What do you want?
I usually like the good news first because it helps kind of lighten the blow for what is about to come for bad news. Because I get that question all the time from athletes. All right, coach, you want the good news or the bad news first? Just give me the good news first, and it'll soften the blow. So yeah, let's do the good news first.
All right, the good news is we have 242 podcasts and about 500,000 downloads.
All right. What's the bad news?
We're doing everything wrong. We got nothing.
Wait, is it because can I take a stab?
Yeah, take a stab.
Can I take a stab at this? We aren't generating direct revenue streams from sponsors and commercials.
That's one.
We aren't acquiring additional emails for lists.
That's another one, yeah, for sure.
And the third one would be we actually podcast twice a week, which is too much.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
I was running out of ideas, so I just kind of threw it out there.
His one of his things was editing is your friend. Make sure you edit out the boring moments. Or the bad questions.
There goes out 90% of our hour. So welcome to the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast, 10-minute episode every Monday and Thursday.
Yeah, well, I raised my hand. I said, I hate to be a downer, man, but we're doing all right by leaving the tape rolling while Robbie answers his door. And my dog barks and I take her outside. And the other thing is we're not name-dropping enough to get the big guests.
I could have totally guessed that one. Well, who gives a shit? Let's just move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's just move on.
But I said, I think one of the things that we're doing right that none of those people in that room are probably doing is being consistent and committed. And that is number one, my friend. You can talk about sales funnels all you want and email grabs and name drops, but if you don't show up and do your podcast, you got nothing.
Yeah. And to be honest, though, you and I battled back and forth, with leaning into doing some of those three that they told you they should do, like early on in our podcasting career. We went back and forth on, how to get more. And what we ultimately decided was, A, that's just not who we are. Mm-hmm. B, that's not why we do the podcast. Because anytime you start to and the thing we ultimately decided that it would just take away the fun, because it would have created why we do this into a business model which creates pressure to perform, and it puts expectations on your return, whether it's commercials or sponsors or guests or leaks, and it was like we don't want to take the fun out of it,
right?
And nor do we, good God, if we had to edit every one of our episodes and just take out the good stuff, it would not be good. It would be very short, which I know we know is a
and
turn.
You're right.
It's a turn off to some people, and that we don't have like that hourglass, crystal clear,
FM.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But hey, we're here. We're open. We're honest. We do the best that we can. We do this shit for free. So you can send all your complaints to crushingiron@gmail.com, and Mike will put those in the trash.
Well, you're really. This is exactly kind of where I was going with this whole podcast in a way, and you're going right down the road. And the part about us keeping it in a format or a style that we really want to do it, and it doesn't become that, and like after every podcast I don't have to sit down and edit for 2 hours and figure out what goes and what stays and all that kind of stuff. That really, it's something that we do every Monday and Thursday, and it's very consistent, and I think there's something in there that plays into how to be consistent with training. There's probably something that maybe people are adding to their training or thinking about the ways they're thinking about training that make it more and more difficult to stay consistent. But when people figure out how to make it enjoyable and something they want to do, it becomes easier.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something in there. I mean, I just at least wanted to start with that kind of thought.
I think, I may be just jumping way too far off this potential subject here in terms of falling in love with training or finding. There's a huge dilemma for a lot of athletes after they've completed and competed in triathlons for a few years, in that they have now determined that triathlon has to always be the end result. It must always be the solution. It must always be the goal, regardless of their season of life, regardless of what life has thrown at them, regardless of where their desires have gone, their excitement, whatever it is. It's like they feel like they would be breaking up with triathlon, and they can't ever come back. And if they do, then what would people think of me? Like, what if I don't do triathlons anymore? What would people think? Well, A, they probably think you're a lot cooler now because you don't wear tri outfits. But, it's like, because I have an athlete, and this athlete will know who he or she is, but I think we were kind of going back and forth after the podcast we put out on Monday, which, we were blunt, but we were supportive, and we were just saying, like, figure it out. What's the ugly truth? And I think that some of, like, the answers behind a lot of those things are that, guess what? Maybe it's just not your time right now to be a triathlete. And that's actually okay. Because I think what happens is, and this is common with, I think, everybody who's been in the sport, is you have like a certain amount of time. You can't create time. You can only use the amount of time that you're given each day, and you have to allocate the amount of time you have with what's most important to you in this phase of life. Because we also like to always advocate for being responsible, for being a good person, for having your priorities in order. And I mean priorities as in, like, those that are close to you, your loved ones, your wife, your kids, your husband, work, if it's something that you love. Like, those are the things that in the hierarchy of triathlon, like, those should fit way ahead of our hobby, that we spend money on. But what a lot of times happens is people find that they're in this season, or they sign up for races, they want to do this race, and they always put a triathlon and a large one at the end of said goal or training cycle or end of the season. And if they don't do that, then they're lost. But the reality of the situation is that you can still, that you're just trying to force your love for triathlon, your love for a specific distance, or, I mean, listen, if you've been alive and you're over the age of, 18, you've all been in a relationship for, at some point, you knew it just wasn't working out, but you're like, I gotta make it work. I've invested so much time. I've already gone through, like, 2 or 3 Valentines days where I spent a lot of money. I went to, Jared's and got a ring, and I've met the parents a few times. I've been to some family functions. Like, I'm all in. I've really got to make this work. And you just keep pressing it versus just listening to your heart and listening to your mind and be like, you know what, this just isn't right for me. It doesn't mean it's not right for me in the future. It doesn't mean there's not going to be another relationship out there. It just means that right now, maybe all I have time for is swimming. Maybe all I have time for is running. Maybe all I have time for is cycling. Maybe I don't have the time to put it all together because there's just too many other things going on in my life right now that I'm either excited about or important to me, or that I just love too much. But I'm going to continue to force it. I'm going to continue to force it and put in this Ironman at the end of, like, my justification of the year. And so in order for me to make this year worth it or a success, I have to do an Ironman, or I have to even do a 70.3. And that's just not the case.
Sometimes it's the old adage of it's familiar and it's what I know best, and even though it sucks or it's not right, it kind of feels comfortable. And yeah, I get it, man. I was out running yesterday, and I was doing some off of the great run retreat and the motivation off of that. I was out kind of doing some hill repeats, and I kept running up and down this same hill, and people were out there walking, and I kept thinking, man, I wonder what they're thinking of me right now. What is this guy doing? And part of me loves that, of course. It's like, man, this guy's going after it. But then there's that. Then I was like, why am I doing this? And then it would always come back to that race. But then halfway through, and I can't say enough about what the camp did, and as far as, like, shifting my mindset and paradigm regarding hills again, it brought me back into that hill importance part that we always talk about. But as I'm going up, I'm like, these are kind of feeling easy, and I was going after them pretty well, and I felt great about that. It kind of was enough at that point. I wasn't having to think about, man, I'm doing this because I'm racing. It was just like, man, my body is really coming around. So, so what makes you feel good? What is going to be the road or the path right now that is going to make you just feel good about what you're doing and just moving and happy and healthy. It's
and
just
and and just being okay with it.
yeah.
Because I mean, I think like one of the biggest things I think so many athletes struggle when they've done a longer, even whatever distance triathlon, that is now the bar. If I don't do one this year is going to be not a failure, but this year just isn't going to meet my expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to do one this year. Every year is different. Heck, every month is different. I mean, if they sat back and like look back on the 2 years prior, be like, I didn't see any of this coming. So why in the hell should I be able to predict the next 2 years? But I think what happens so many times is people get stuck in the mud of training, trying to make something work that just isn't meant to work right now. And so they spend and they waste time trying to fit in. Yeah, I get this is kind of weird that we're a triathlon podcast, but this is almost to not do one. But listen, this is more of an endurance podcast. It's an endurance of life and sport and trying to make things sustainable. But that is something that people struggle with. I mean, I deal with athletes that struggle with it. Their life becomes so busy, and there's so many things that are either really, really hard or really, really great. And they both consume energy. Like we've talked about this over and over again. It's not that you're not motivated. It's that you don't have the energy to be motivated. It requires energy, mental, emotional, and physical to be motivated. Your motivation will mean nothing if you don't have the energy to apply it. Mm-hmm. And so you have athletes that are going through great times, moving, new jobs, new relationships, uncertainty. Where am I going to be in the next few months? They're all great moves, yet they require so much mental and emotional, square footage in our brain. And that's where we go. And so it drains you. It takes so much energy mentally, emotionally, and then it's hard for you to apply things physically. But yet you've got this looming race or this looming event or this huge Ironman or 70.3 or marathon, whatever, that you've committed to either already through registration or you've committed to just in the cycle of who you are as a person, that if I don't do X, Y, and Z, this year has been nah. Because then you're going to have to go to your little tri-club parties and your friends like, hey, what kind of race are you doing this year? Mm-hmm. What are you doing this year? Well, I'm just doing, I am Chad #. And then you have to feel like you have to say something. Because if you don't, then what the hell are you going to talk about?
Right.
But God forbid you be like, I'm still going to get my training in when and where I can. But right now, I'm just going to be an effing adult. And I have a lot of things going on in my life right now that all are way more important than me shoving on a tri outfit, shoving chamois cream up my crap, and riding around in an alien helmet for a couple hours. These things kind of take precedent. So that's who I am this year. It doesn't mean I'm retiring. It doesn't mean I'm on the DL. It doesn't mean that I quit. It doesn't mean that you're better than me. It just means that that's kind of where I am. So I'm going to focus on doing the best that I can with the time that I have and the energy that I have. And that's how I'm going to. The question is, do I want to tread water? Do I want to feel like I'm drowning? Do I want to feel like I'm never going to meet this expectation of finishing X race because I don't have the time and to put in the volume and the intensity and the dedication and the weekends? Or do I want to understand and realize and look at myself in the mirror and be like, dude, you've got like 3 to 4 hours max a week. You don't have time to drive to the pool. You don't have time to get on your bike. You've got 3 to 4 hours a week max. So what's the best return on investment I can get from that? I can be the best runner I can possibly be this year. And you know what? That's okay. I can still put out a lot of effort. I can still be responsible. I can still feel like I got my shit together. I can still pursue something that is important, that is process and goal oriented, that allows me to see progress over time. And I can feel good about it and not feel like I'm failing because I can't do X, Y, and Z that all my friends can. So it's a way of understanding and just coming to that realization that, guess what? That's actually okay. That's actually responsible. You don't have to have a race. It's nice to. I think it's important to. But it doesn't have to be this ridiculously insane thing that people think people are going to look at and either be, oh, well, yeah, of course he's doing an Ironman this year. Of course he's doing a 70.3. Like, that's just what you got to do. You just don't have to do that. You have to find out what's important to you in life and take those 1, 2, 3 things. And that, like, it's, what do you really want to do? Do you want to be okay at 28 things and feel like you're just not good enough? Or do you want to be great at like 3 or 4? So take your pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the simplification thing, man. I fall into that trap, like, as you know, constantly with a million different desires and things I want to do. And, am I going to, the video stuff, the writing, whatever, all these dreams, the painting, on and on and on. And it's an overwhelming thing. And then you add, let's perfect swim, bike, and run in the mix. And let's, be a good person, and on and on and on. And it's just like, it can be overwhelming. There's just no doubt about it. And the weird part is, though, as a triathlete, the more I get into a groove with my workouts, and we talked about this too, is like the busiest people sometimes are the most consistent because they sort of do stuff, and then the more you get into it, and as of now, the more consistent I am with my workouts and all that other stuff, the better I get at it, the easier it becomes too. So it's a weird dynamic there, but I hate, as when I check Training Peaks and people are saying that, it's always like, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to do this today. I feel really bad, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's the worst thing I hate reading, the thing I hate reading the most, because it's like, I know life is difficult, man. And you don't have to apologize to me. You got to figure out your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And or the other one is, I finished this late tonight. I'm exhausted. I've been exhausted for 3 days or whatever. It's like, man, then you just feel weird. And as a coach, I think I kind of know how you handle that one, but it's like people are on a roll and they're trying to get everything green and every workout in, and they put in their, man, just exhausted. I'm exhausted. And I know you come back with, kind of something like this, I'm sure, right?
Mm-hmm. It's such a hard thing to wrap, I think, our minds around when we've spent so much time and energy and effort investing in a particular direction. And there are so many times in life, I think, when, regardless of it in sport or in business or in relationships, where you're like, yeah, but if I do this, I don't know if I can come back. I don't know if I can do this. It's like the old fear of, yeah, I'm just going to take a semester off.
Yeah.
Famous last words. Goodbye, college. Like, I wonder what the return rate is for the, what? I'm just going to take a semester off. You know what happened to me? I took 3. I'm going to take a semesters off, and came back 3 times and never went back. So, like, there is that fear, and I think it's justified. And I think it's normal. I think it's there's value in listening to that kind of apprehension that is like, yeah, I'm just going to take some time off, or I'm just going to take a semester off, because you're like, well, damn it, like, what am I going to lose? How hard is it going to be to come back? But there are still opportunities within what you're doing to be really, really good at something, which I think at the core of why we got into this sport, or any sport, is to change our lives in a better way by applying the same principles we do to training to the other aspects of our life. And that's when people tend to get lost, and that's when people tend to go down the wrong alleys, is that you're trying to continue on this same path when every other thing in your life is driving down the other road. And you're pulling yourself internally and externally in 2 different, 3 different, 4 different directions, and you wonder why you just don't feel like you have any direction. It's because one minute you're going this way, the other minute it's like you haven't aligned your life to the reality of where you are and who you are at this time, and what's the most important thing to you. Mm-hmm. When I have athletes a few times a year be like, Coach, I just don't know if I can do it. Hell no, I don't care. I don't care what you do. I don't. couldn't care less. If all you want to do is half marathons or marathons, I don't care. It's not my job. My job isn't to make you into an Ironman. My job isn't to continue to keep you into the Triathlon 70.3 Ironman funnel. I don't work for them. I work for you. So you tell me what you want to do and what moves you and what motivates you and what gives you a sense of relief, and then allows you the opportunity to feel free to do whatever it is, just running, just swimming, whatever, to make you do the best that you can. That's my job. I could care less what you do. I'll help you make the best decision that we possibly can together. But my job, and any job as a coach or any friend of an athlete or triathlete or whatever it is it's not my job to convince you all the reasons why you should do it. It's to listen to what you have to say and maybe even be the person like, you know what? I just don't think that's a good idea this year. You've got and some athletes can come to this conclusion themselves and some can't. But there's going to come a point where you can either spread yourself thin and hate your training because you're trying to squeeze in 8 hours of subpar, not optimal training, and it's stretching other areas of your life thin because you're making sacrifices to just to kind of go through the motions of being whatever or shooting for whatever, instead of being like, you know what, right now I don't know, and that's okay, but I do have time for this, so let's just work on this. Because there's always things in, regardless of where you are and what you're doing, that you can work on, that you can focus on, that can still complement your life and complement your journey as an athlete. Because we're all athletes, whether you believe it or not. Everybody is an athlete. And it's finding and allowing that honest conversation to happen between you and your life and your availability, and then coming to a conclusion together on what is going to allow me to be the best athlete that I can this year. And it might not mean treading water and being mediocre with 10 hours of stressful, I've got to get this in, versus this is who I can be on an outstanding 6 to 7 hours without feeling the guilt of doing whatever it is. And I think those are really hard to have with yourself. They're really hard to have with people, because in triathlon especially, you surround yourself with people who are the same, doing the same events, doing the same distance, doing the same this. And that's what a lot of, athletes have their things, surrounded on. But it's like, you don't want to, it's like this uncomfortableness that we sit with. That's like, but what are people going to think of me? Okay, first off, let's make something clear. In triathlon, very rarely are people thinking about you ever anyway. Most people are just thinking about themselves, so let's just cool it for a second. If anything, they're like, ha ha ha, one less person in my age group. Here I come, that USAT, nationals qualifier. But it's hard, but I think, and I can tell you this from personal experience, I can tell you this from dealing with specific athletes. Once you come to that decision that it's not in the cards and that you're going to be responsible and go after something else that's more attainable, they shed this like monkey off their back of like relief that now empowers them to move forward in a more purposeful direction that allows them to be the best that they can within the parameters of what life is handing them at the time. And that is when you see people succeed the most.
It's like the power of saying no to something that's disrupting your life, man. I mean, whether it's a person or a job or whatever the case may be. As you're talking, because I'm trying to also balance the other perspective of, people that want, as we train, and what is our goal? Like, for example, my goal, not my goal, but I guess it is a goal. Like if I say Ironman, I've usually done my races just under 12 hours, and I always have this 11 in my head. And whenever that kind of creeps into my head, I start feeling a different level of like, okay, you better get your shit together and blah, blah, blah. But what if my goal were to be, the same time, complete things I've already done, but just like actually feel good at the end. I mean, not completely wrecked. I mean, that's a pretty good goal, I think, man. If you're talking about any race, like usually when I'm done with a race, and there's this weird thing about, you try calc it for months in advance, and then you kind of always have this thing, and I can be faster and I can be. But what if you just actually got stronger and felt better after doing one of these races, and you didn't absolutely, floor it, and I don't know. I mean, that's that justification, that athlete versus like trying to be a top athlete in the world all the time. I mean, it's just like, we're getting older. I mean, everybody's aging, right? We're all fighting sort of like one dragon into that. You're getting older and you're trying to hang on and feel younger. It's sort of like this weird thing that we always have to, and I'm like at the top of that. I mean, I'm the kind of person who feels like that we should be living, we can live longer and we can get healthier. We don't have to feel old, obviously. I mean, like you look at people nowadays in their 50s and it's like people from the 30s, 40 years ago or whatever. And there's that thing going on. So we figured out some stuff here, but why do we have to keep, I guess it's sort of like some people have to push the envelope, and then we have to look at that and go, the smart way might be just to approach this in a way that is manageable and makes us feel better and is good for us in the long run. And that's why I think, the people that don't understand running slow to get faster, it's really running slow to get stronger and feel better. And I think that makes a whole lot of sense, when you start thinking about things in that way. It's like you don't have to be wrecked after every workout. You don't have to be wrecked after every race. I mean, wouldn't that be a lot more or less stressful if you're thinking about things like that? And then maybe it's like okay to go out and run a couple miles just because you feel like it after work, instead of having to, bust out some kind of crazy thing all the time. There's different levels.
Yeah, there is. But it's that society has taught us and programmed us and it tries to convince us every single day that in order for anything to get through and be purposeful and to get a reaction, it has to be something grand. A grand result, a grand experience, or a incredibly grand pain. Like, it's always one end of the spectrum or the other. It has to be something like huge. It can't just be, it can't just, it's always the opposite end, that 10% on each end of the spectrum. It's either got to be super, super great, or it's just got to be totally, the worst. It's never going to be that, that in the middle, that just putting in the work that falls into your life, that isn't exhilarating every day to where you're going really, really high, nor is it incredibly painful and demoralizing to where you hit a really, really big low. It's just that it's just every day. And I think so many times what happens is athletes chase those 10%. I think I know athletes do. I know some that they chase not just the 10% of the feeling great, but they also chase that 10% of just absolutely destroying themselves, because that's their way of convincing themselves that pain is weakness leaving the body. Yeah. Or pain is like leading you to being in a walking boot. Whatever. Take your pick. But it's that discussion. So we live and we work and we establish our relationships and our training cycles and our race calendars based on usually what we foresee and forecast as our max capacity. Oh, we can totally make this work. Mm-hmm. Blindly. You know what, baby? If you need to move to San Diego and make this job work, you do it. And we can make this work long distance. And then like a month later, you're like, oh my God, this is not working out. Or your boss comes to you and is like, hey, I think you can, can you help me out here? And you're like, I got to say yes. I can't take on this heavy load, but I got to say yes. Here, I can take it on. And it ends up absolutely drowning you. And you end up actually underperforming because you now start to do 20 things half-ass, and you can't even do 8 things really, really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing goes with training. As we wake up one day and we look to plan our year and we think, Robbie, this is what you can do working at max capacity, perfect life, perfect scenario. This is it. This is you. We got this. And then like you wake up a week later and you're like, oh my God, my whole life has changed. Like I don't have the energy, or certain things have shifted in their area of importance in your life. Like, and so now you're struggling with the amount of emotional and mental and physical money that you have versus the emotional, the mental and the physical money that you just invested and spent. And your thinking is, now I've got to do the training to get my return on that investment. Not just because you don't want to waste your registration fee, but you personally feel an obligation to now look and see, I've got to fulfill the emotional, mental, and physical, financial, investment, energy investment, time investment that I committed to by signing up for these races, even though my life is totally different. I'm not working with the same things I was working with. And now you're going to be stressed out because you feel like you have to make it work, instead of just being like, you know what, I need to cut my losses here. So instead of running 6 or 8, triathlon race businesses, I don't have time for those. You know what I do have time for? 2. And I guarantee you I can make those incredibly successful and profitable and enjoyable, and I will love them. So I can either choose those 2, or I can choose to probably run 8 into the ground and then want to retire and sell them all and file for bankruptcy at the end of the year. Do what?
No, I'm laughing at that. Yeah.
But that's how we all look at it, and that is also the predicament that a lot of people find themselves in between end of season, when you're living on a high, and you make commitments for the following year based on your life, your energy, your motivation, the great fitness, the want to do it again, versus the reality of January through March, April, May, and now the realization of, okay, things are going to be a little bit different this year. So now, how do I make the best decision to where I don't quit, but I don't stress myself too thin? What can I do to wake up in the mirror and look at myself and think, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm just not sitting there waiting to make a decision.
Mm. Listen, man, I was watching the other night this panel on Super Bowl ads, and all these marketing experts were up there talking about how smart it is to buy a $5 million commercial, and how because of all the social buzz and, everything that comes out of it, and how it's a great selling tool, blah, blah, blah. And it's like if you think about it, like, everybody wants your money. Everybody wants your energy. Everybody, they're pitching for that, and it just becomes this crazy pool of logo soup, and we just don't, the point is like, I think I've been talking about this on the previous podcast was regard to, do I need a new bike? And that just keeps drilling at me, and the best thing that happens is when I'm like, you know what, I don't need a new bike, and I don't even think about it. It's like, why do I need to go spend $5,000 and get a new bike when what I have is fine if I work at it, if I train on it, and it's proven that it can go fast enough. For me, in certain times, I've gone very fast on that bike. You know what I mean? And if I'm stronger, I'll go faster. But you're right, man. With this energy zap, it's like there's so many things tugging at us, and they want our attention, they want our money, they want our emotions. And it just becomes such a drain. And then, that it's so weird to be sitting here, kind of talking about this stuff, because I feel like it's the antithesis of what happens most of the time now. I mean, you're basically saying it's okay not to do triathlon, or we're a triathlon podcast. And I find that fascinating because
but it's
so
exactly
relieving.
it is, but it's exactly what we going back to how we started the podcast about what you learned we're doing terrible at from your little podcast group.
Yeah.
Is that we don't have, like, we haven't committed to, we don't have sponsors we have to answer to. We don't have people that make us plug in and name drop them to answer to make sure they get likes and views and page clicks and all that kind of BS. We don't own any of that. Like, we don't have to do anything. The only thing we have to do is call each other at 9 a.m. twice a week and spend an hour doing something that we love.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And then whatever the result is whatever the result is. But we don't have, we don't get off and we don't check iTunes analytics or Facebook clicks or views or downloads or website likes. And it's like we don't have to do this because we haven't committed to integrating those metrics as instant feedback to, are we doing things right? We just get done with the podcast and we think we have our little chit chat off there. I'm like, hey, that was actually pretty good. Or, man, I don't know about that one. Or, it's like, but that's as far as it goes,
Mm-hmm.
and then we hope people get things out of it. So we aren't committed to that, and it's like, man, how can I apply that thought process to everything that I do in my life? That I just show up on time and do the best that I can and leave the rest. Because I haven't put myself in a situation where I quote unquote have to do anything. And then after I am obligated and responsible to do it, now I have to look to something else to see, was that demand and was that responsibility actually worth it? Mm-hmm. And then I've got to judge it again on a success or failure rate based on what I felt I was obligated to do. And that's what makes decision making so difficult when you continue to add in, it's like going back to our Valentines talk. It's like, listen, when you're married and you have kids, like, you don't get bonus points. You don't get brownie points for taking out the trash. You don't get brownie points for packing your kids' lunch. You don't get brownie points for going to the grocery or doing the laundry or cleaning up the house or mowing the yard. You do it because it's just it's what it takes to keep the wheels turning. But when you start to expect all these grandiose things in return, then everything you do is also what gets taken away, and what is removed is just this honest, raw approach of just enjoyment. And like, I had a coach reach out to me yesterday or earlier this week and was asking me about how we've been so successful with our camps. And we have a lot of people that come, and we have a huge range of athletic abilities. And he was asking me, how do you manage the athletic abilities? How do you manage people not feeling too intimidated? How do you, make everyone, make sure they're getting out X, Y, and Z? And it brought me right back to Jeff's quote, I think, that he put on Facebook, maybe in our run retreat or run camp Facebook group, about what he thought he was going to learn at camp was some mechanic changes, some things to make him a quote unquote better runner that were analytical and data driven and something finite, a finite adjustment, moving from a heel strike to a forefoot strike, changing your arm swing, changing your run gait, going from a 70 cadence or a 140 cadence to 190. Like, these are going to be the game changers. But the most rewarding thing you can do for an athlete or a person or a friend or whatever it is put them in an environment that supports them and allows them to explore themselves and find out really at the core what is the most important thing for them, and then let them figure out what they're going to get out of it instead of telling them what they're going to get out of it and putting in an expectation that says you're going to get X, Y, and Z. Like, that's like one of my biggest pet peeves about, like, you will get 11% faster when using our Triathlon integrated data analytic program. First of all, that's like total horse crap. But it's like you strip away that exploration of doing things for what you love, and what I think Jeff said, and I don't have that quote in front of him, is that I found more confidence within myself than I ever would have imagined, and more into I enjoy doing things more. And that's the things that keep you going, is love and enjoyment and doing it because, man, like, it just feels good. And so when you have that, like, again, it's just like drilling things down into its most, like, simplest form. Like, when did we get away from letting that be our driving factor? When did we get away from everything that we do has to be analyzed and driven and filtered and posted and liked and hearted and whatever? When did that begin to infiltrate every aspect and second of our lives to allow us to see that today was a success, or my feelings are great, or my thoughts are placed in the right way? Like, whatever happened to just quietly going about your business and doing one specific thing just because you love it, and that's all you need to fill you up. You don't care about anything else. You don't care, because you care so deeply, and you get so enriched personally and so filled up by these specific things or these specific people or these or this job or whatever it is, or this training, whatever it is in your life. Like, that's what you get. You can't put money on it. You can't come back from, like, no one's going to leave from run camp and be like, I saw, come to our run camp because you will see a 17-second drop in pace over 28 miles. That's, first of all, it's just total bullcrap. But that's how people feel like they have to advertise today, is if you do this,
oh yeah, you
will get X, Y, and Z. It's like, wait, what? What?
Yeah, I mean,
like that. I don't want that. Like, I don't want that. I want to feel good about what I'm doing, and I want it to rejuvenate me, and I want it to add things and add value to what I'm doing with my life, not suffocate me to where I get so out of breath of trying to put together a training plan or a training cycle based around a specific date that I end up just hyperventilating my way through a triathlon season.
Yep. One of the hardest things, man, I think, is that one of the things we all deal with is we're continually tempted by opportunity. And what you're saying about, like, that, hey, babe, you moved to San Diego because it's like we're driven by this potential for opportunity and it's like clicking on all these events that pop up on your Facebook feed or something, like, oh, I'm interested in that. Interested, and I do none of it. And it's like, why? What is that? Why am I interested in all that? And, sometimes you do some of it or whatever. But, yeah, man, it's like it does there's so much power in just reining it in and being simplistic about stuff and not having to always get something new or try something. I mean, but that, again, I think there's power in that too. It's like trying, getting out of your comfort zone. There's that fine balance with that. But the reality is when you go to something like our run camp and you can come out of that with more confidence and enjoyment for what you're doing, and that's the lesson you learn versus heel strike or foot strike or whatever. That's pretty powerful, man, because you can transfer that into everything. You can just, it's sort of in the most positive, powerful way of being content, just being comfortable in your own skin. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Because if you can go into that weekend at run camp uncomfortable and not sure about people, and then leave there feeling a rush of, like, friendship, camaraderie, love, or whatever, you just won, man. You just won.
Yeah, and you're not limiting yourself, like you said. Like, as a coach and as a friend of athletes, like, I want to fuel you with a substance or with an actual fuel that will take you through everything, not just a specific fuels for a specific day, for a specific car. You know, like sometimes I always feel sorry for like the little green machine vehicles you have to plug in because there's like one spot, and it's usually always taken by like somebody's Tesla who's been there for like 72 hours, and the rest of us can just park in whatever damn spot we want to. But it's about fueling yourself for the everyday, and I can tell you right now, like the athletes are going to be the most sustainable and the happiest and the most comfortable in their skin to make these specific changes. Yes, data is important, but only after you've enjoyed and been consistent enough to accumulate it when it matters. Not one session. Or it's what drives you. You know, or it's either what drives you or what gets you stuck in a traffic jam or what gets you lost. It's just there's so much to be said for, you know, like you were saying, like, listen, the most powerful word in the English language is no. And I mean, my wife gives me a hard time so much because she's like, hey, I'm like, nope. Hey, I'm like, nope. I get a text, hey man, do you want? Nope. Like, I don't want to. You know, I don't even think once I've been on Facebook. Yeah, man, I'm interested in that. I see them like, nope, hard pass. You know, which sometimes mean I, you know, probably don't explore or, you know, do things enough. But listen, I just don't want to. You know, and I just don't have to. And I think that is like the most simplistic conversation that we have to have with ourselves is, do I want to and do I have to? And then make your decision. Instead of, well, how's it going to look? Or when everybody else is posting their long rides and their things, like, do I want to be left out or do I want to be like this? We had people come down last year for one of our training weekends that we had. It was free just for a bunch of athletes training. I think we had like 3 or 4 come down that had no race in sight. They just wanted to get out and have fun. Like, when did we lose that kind of fun? Where, and I think, like, looking back on the weekend that we had, like, I'm kind of surprised, honestly. Happily surprised that, like, the most fun that, I mean, obviously, because it was not like hard running where they could barely breathe, but how much the athletes loved the hiking.
Yeah.
It was in a great location and in a great scenery, great backdrop, and great company. But they were still working hard. But it was no expectation the first day. It was a little competition the next. But the first day was just go out and just love it.
Mm-hmm.
Just get back to that, like, I'm out here. I don't have to be, but I am. It's cold. The sun's out though, and like, this is life. This is how it's supposed to be. No judgment, no pass or fail. It's just, this made me happy and I enjoyed this time and I chose to do it. You know, and that, again, it's like getting everything back to the most simplest answer. We always know that's the most truest answer, is that one. But when you continue to add everything else and people and what you see, it's like, whoa, what the hell? Like, I'll catch myself sometimes. Like, either I'll pop on, like, I haven't been on Instagram in months, but I'll still pop on a Twitter and pop on a Facebook, obviously. And then usually after about 2 minutes, I'm like, what the hell am I even looking at?
I know. I know. It's unbelievable.
Besides our closed Facebook, I'm like, I've just been total, like, I'm ashamed of myself right now. That's what I usually feel. I'm like, God bless, like, got me again. You know, like, but it's just that feeling, and I think it encompasses and infiltrates every aspect of our life. That it's just like, what? I want everything to be so simple, you know, and it can be. But from the moment I wake up and the time we go to bed, like, we just continue to add and add and add, and I need more. Like, I've never had an athlete like, you know what, coach? I think I should sell my tri bike and get back to a road bike. That'd be more fun. Or, you know what? These race wheels are just way too freaking, like, loud, and they sound way too cool. I'm gonna go back to my stock wheels from the bike.
Yeah, right.
Or, you know what, coach? I'm gonna ditch my. You know, it's like, it's always the more that's gonna add this. You know, this, and this. And then usually the conversation I have to have is, okay, what do you really need? Or what void is this trying to fill? For some athletes. Now, some, it's like, I had an athlete yesterday asking me about getting a power meter. And I was yeah, dude, absolutely. Like, you're one of the most consistent athletes that I work with, if not, the top 5. Absolutely. Like, get you one, and we'll definitely it'll definitely improve and enhance your training and your racing. But had it been an athlete who like cycles and bikes like twice a week and is very consistent, I'd be like, nah.
Right. Yeah, man, that's a really good point.
I don't really want to. What? It's going to show me how you did every other Tuesday and Friday on the 13th and 21st of each month.
Right, because that's sort of this, like, you're moving, you're doing one thing and you're doing it well, and you want to do it better. So you buy something that goes in that direction rather than just having a power meter just so it can sit around on your table because you think you need it, and every once in a while you use it. And then really it just becomes a weight then on your back. Like you're saying, there's always something else out there. There's always something else. And you go on Twitter and whatever, and it becomes a look at me contest, and then you want to get in there, and you shouldn't. If you're going to get something new, earn it. Almost, it's almost like get real consistent on your bike, and then be like, hey, I could probably take this up a notch if I would add this gadget or whatever the case may be. It's just like it's like the watches, and there's always another level of data you can get out of it, and it's like, why? I don't know.
If you're not creating any data either. Right. You're just giving yourself something to look at the end of your workout. Like, that is absolutely, totally, 100% meaningless.
Yeah, I didn't need a watch to know I had a good run yesterday. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's useless without a specific amount of data to collect and then analyze. But most athletes, want to pretend like they can analyze it after every workout, and good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Well,
so this has been the most uplifting Valentine's Day Triathlon podcast in the history of podcasts. We thank you for joining us. Signing off. We're all going to go sit in the dark and watch Lifetime. No, but
we're going to journal with our feather pen. Little candle.
Yep. And sit in our Snuggies. C26 Snuggies. It'll be coming out soon. But no, in all honesty, it's
a good idea.
It's a good idea.
We should sell Snuggies.
We'll talk about it off the air. It's just do what you love, be realistic, and ultimately just be fair to yourself. Just be fair to yourself. Don't put yourself in a bad situation. Don't commit to something that's gonna take it out of you. And understand and be happy that you're a person that has like 3 things in life that you really, really, really love. And it's perfectly okay and suggested and normal and healthy to basically say the hell to the rest with the rest of it. Because ultimately that's what life's. What are you going to have left? I was reading our great article today. It's like the greatest freedom now is no longer finances, it's freedom. It's your time. The ability to do what you want with the time that you have, not the amount of money you're going to be able to save over X, Y, and Z. And I could not agree more with. But it's also how you use your time and who you use it with. And if you're always worried about not having enough, that you're never going to have any. And just be fair to yourself and use that process in your decision making and your race calendar, or choosing not to do a race. It's making the most out of what you have, not trying to, just get by. Because I can tell you, just trying to get by is the most unfulfilling thing you can do. Is just kind of inching your way forward and just getting by. With a race calendar or with business or relationships, whatever it is. So I think, even though it had a little bit of a darker tone to this beautiful red, pink filled, chocolate glazed Valentine's Day, we did at least get to the heart of what.
Ooh.
Yeah, you like that.
That's it.
This is, yeah, well done. Slow clap. Of what should be the most important thing to you and for you. And we hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please subscribe on iTunes. Please head over to our website, crushingiron.com. Send us a Valentine. Shoot us an email. You can reach out to Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. You can reach out to me directly, c26coach@gmail.com.
That sounds great, man. I guess I won't introduce the new segment idea I had for our podcast.
What was it? Why you should do triathlon?
No, it was going to be called "Things That Bug Us, But We're Working on Getting Over."
Well, that's basically every one of my rants I have.
I know it.
Listen, man, I got a lot of problems with all you people. Give me our grievances, like they do on Seinfeld.
But you're working on it.
Yeah, but it isn't. No, it's okay for things to irritate me as long as they don't drive me and eat at me. I know what I like and I know what I don't like.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you got you forget about that stuff and it doesn't bother you, and then you go on Twitter and then it's like right back in your face. That's what happens to me all the time. Like if I just ignore the macro conversation of life, then I'm a lot better off. If I can just stay in.
Everybody should do that because all it does is, and the only thing you get from it is like that Charlie Brown noise.
Yeah, it's like stay in your lane, bro. Stay in your lane.
No kidding. Stay. Listen, man, it's one of they always. When I was getting sober, they always said to me, "It's like, hey, why don't you just worry about keeping your side of the street clean, buddy?"
Mm-hmm.
And instead of being
Well, that's what happens out there, man. You get these people that think they're going to solve the world's problems with a tweet, and it's like, I mean, honestly, God, that's like, think about what
my favorite thing is then they retweet their tweet.
Yeah,
you're the same person that set their own joke like hysterically and really loud right after you tell it. Like, let us decide if it was great or not.
Wait, maybe you missed this. Here it is again.
Wait, you don't get it?
Wait, yeah.
Tis life. I meant to Matt Dickinson, if you're listening, he sent me an email yesterday about a nutrition plan, and I'll respond to you right now on the air since I didn't respond to you yet from yesterday. And this is, I think, something that we can all kind of take to heart in different areas, is that there are a million different ideas and suggestions and hacks and guidelines and ways to be successful. And you are one in a million. There is one way, and it's your way. You don't have to adopt everyone else's way for everything, in every way, all the time. Just be you. Be you on your Valentines. You go out and you spend that money. You drop those dollars. If you haven't gotta get a greeting card, go get you one. Put like a 20 spot of Chili's in there. Send it over to your favorite girl or guy, and maybe a gift card to the local tri-store. And if you want to get real kinky, throw some Body Glide in there. You're welcome. We'll see you on Monday.
I'm gonna get to editing now.
We'll see you on Monday.
See you on Monday, buddy.